Hello, everybody. Aisha Harley here. Welcome to our Essential Wellness Education Series. I am absolutely thrilled to be here with the delightful and amazing Stephanie McBride. Stephanie is a passionate advocate for the use of essential oils as a form of natural self-care and in clinical practice from the moment of conception on. She is a wealth of information. She is a certified clinical herbalist. She's a functional nutritionist and aromatherapist, and she has 25 years of botanical medicine study and 10 years of practical experience working in the field of maternal and children's health. Stephanie is also a published author and presents globally for health conferences and other events. Her education, practice, and life experience have given her the in-depth knowledge necessary to simplify the ancient practice of using essential oils for maternity and infant care for others. She lives here in Portland, Oregon, and is the mother of 3 beautiful children. Stephanie, we are so honored to have you with us here today. Thank you so much. And I'm going to just go ahead and pass the floor over to you because I know you have a lot of amazing information to share with us.
Great. Thank you, Aisha. I'm very happy to be here talking to the Essential Wellness community. Aisha is amazing, as well as a lot of other leaders in our community. I can't speak more highly about everything you've put together for us to learn as much as we can about how to use these amazing oils in our lives. And I'm really happy to be sharing today what I've spent many years putting together and learning about for my own just personal interest, but also because I'm so hugely in favor of integrating natural modalities of healthcare into the world, and also especially into pregnancy and infant care, when a lot of times we're really confused about what to use and what not to use. And of course, it's also a time when there's a lot more discomforts that come up apart from normal everyday things. So I wanted to start by just sharing a little bit about myself. Aisha said a little bit about my background, but I wanted to let you know that I have 3 children. Now they're getting older, but when I was having my babies, I was very committed to natural birth. And I was lucky that I was able to carry out my birth plan, which is to have 2 of my children at home in water and 1 child, my first baby, at a hospital. And I love having babies. I think the entire process of pregnancy is just incredible and amazing. But I also did struggle a lot through it, and especially in postpartum. And because it had already been from my teenage years on just such an interest to use food and plant medicine to help cope with things, I did integrate as much as I could into my own pregnancies, but I didn't actually learn about essential oils or really think that they had much efficacy until after I had my babies. And so that's one of the reasons I wrote my book. I've changed the title since then, but it's called Hindsights for Maternal Wellness, because it's all about, you know, my stories of having my kids, and like in hindsight, what would I have done differently if I'd known about these amazing essential oils, which I think of as gifts so much for women in pregnancy and during labor. So I'm really happy to get to share this information with you. And this is me with my first baby, who's now 17, taking the SATs today. But I had, you know, really difficult postpartum period, and I struggled a lot with sleep, which had never been an issue for me. I talk a lot about why that happened in my book and in my e-course, but it's brought me around to learning how to completely bring back my health from the postpartum period into just like a really high level of vitality, even years after the fact. So I think that that's something I'll touch on a little bit in this webinar, is just how I use essential oils to get such a high level of wellness. I'm going to start off and just give you some basic guidelines for essential oil use and how you might adapt the way you're already using oils, if you're already using oils, when you become pregnant, or how you might recommend that others do. And then I'll try to speak in really general terms as well for those of you who are new to essential oils. So I'll go over guidelines for maternity and also for nursing moms and for infants. And then we'll talk about the 3 main types of application and how to use those to the best of your ability and the most safely during maternity. And when I say maternity, I really mean from the moment of conception through labor and delivery into postpartum, and also for breastfeeding moms and infant care, which is infant care is defined usually as the first month of the baby's life. So this is only an hour-long talk. I won't be able to go into too much depth, but I did want to, just go over basic applications. And then I'll end by talking about my 3 favorite essential oils. And there's so much more information to share, but let's just start with kind of what you're going to do. You're first pregnant, you have someone in your community pregnant. What are some really basic things you should know? So first of all, this is just like a disclaimer sort of statement, but it's also very true and important to use in normal, healthy pregnancies with women who have given their consent. And basically that means that if you have a medical condition, you're going to continue to see a practitioner or a birth professional or someone. If it's out of your scope of practice, which is the second one, then don't be using essential oils to treat something that's like a disease if you're not a doctor. And a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today are just general, discomforts of pregnancy. However, I do also work with midwives. I've done so many midwifery trainings for nurse midwives and naturopaths and people in the medical community who actually can use essential oils to have some of those like more therapeutic medical sorts of effects. And I point this out in case you are someone from that community who would like to learn more about how to do that from me, but also so that you know that these are very potent and you can use them like that, which is another reason to take extra care, that you're not working outside your scope of practice. I also recommend using therapeutic quality essential oils only, so you can get the full benefit without any potential toxicity. Start with the lowest concentration. And I do have charts to show you how to start. People worry a lot about safety during pregnancy, but they're actually very, very safe. There's very few oils that are contraindicated. Most every oil is perfectly suitable for pregnancy and very safe. The general guideline for people that are experts in aromatherapy is to just assume basically that something's safe unless you have research to the opposite of that. But when we say start with the lowest concentration, it really isn't a worry about toxicity. It's more about skin sensitivity. So if you start with 1 drop per teaspoon, for example, for a massage during pregnancy, and there's absolutely no skin irritation, but maybe you'd like a little bit of a stronger aromatic effect, or it's not helping as much as you'd like, you can certainly add more to the concentration and even use oils neat during pregnancy. It's just that women, because the bile flow and different things in the body, they change the way they function. Your metabolism changes in pregnancy. Some people who were not sensitive to oils before they got pregnant are suddenly sensitive and they have redness of their skin or itchiness or something like that. It's not common, but it is something that's more common during pregnancy. So that's the reason we say to dilute oils more, in case you were wondering why that's often stated when people are giving recommendations. Also, avoid prolonged use of any one oil, in part because they work better if you change them around, but also just to make sure that you don't get overloaded with any one oil. Test diluted oils on the wrist before use. This is just another precaution for women who are pregnant who might be more sensitive, so that they can test first and see if they're sensitive or not. Avoid contact with the eyes and ears. And finally, the number one health concern of everything to do with maternity is just to keep out of reach of children. And that's pretty general, but that's the number one cause of harm with kids. And even when that's the case, it's more that they get it in their eyes or something like that. There aren't a lot of really serious health problems that come from that, but it can be very disturbing for a child it's almost like getting pepper spray in your eyes to get essential oils in your eyes. Okay, so some guidelines for nursing. And essential oils are really incredible to help with all kinds of things related with nursing, including breast milk production, engorgement or overly full breasts that cause pain. Some people have soreness, some people have cracked nipples. These are really great to apply topically. They can also help to build the immunity against infection. But one good rule of thumb is to apply the essential oils after the baby's nursed. And this is just to avoid contact with the baby's face or eyes. You also should apply in the direction of the nipple just to help with the flow, natural flow of the body. Avoid contact with the baby's face or eyes. Some people might want to use soap and water to clean off their breasts after applying oils. In most cases, that's not necessary because there's a time absorption is usually pretty quick, usually within 20 minutes. So if you follow the first rule, which is to apply after the baby's nursed, then there shouldn't be like contact with the baby's face anyway. So seek professional advice for medical conditions. And essential oils can change the taste of breast milk. So this is something that you might just want to alert moms to if you're giving someone a recommendation, if baby suddenly thinks it's yucky tasting or, makes a face or doesn't want to nurse. It might be because the flavor is affected. But however, that being said, it's less than 1% of the oil that actually gets through to the baby. The mom's body is a really good filter for the oils. Do not take essential oils internally during breastfeeding unless prescribed or until the baby is 3 months or older. And this may be a little bit on the side of caution, but I just recommend it because one big thing is just the baby needs to establish a really good relationship with the taste of the mom's milk and not to affect that. And also they're getting a lot of really good probiotics, and we don't want to interfere with probiotic production if you're using like antimicrobial essential oils. So it's just good to let the baby like come into the natural breastfeeding cycle. And it's really devastating if a baby stops nursing for moms. So if they don't like the taste and that causes problems, it can be pretty upsetting. But after they're 3 months or older, normal use of essential oils is really fine during nursing. Peppermint and spearmint may reduce breast milk production in some women. The best way to find out is just to try, and this could be topical or aromatic use. Just try it and see if it reduces it or not. There was a survey done on Facebook on Robert Tisserin's Facebook group asking people to report whether they'd experienced this. It was very informal. There wasn't any guideline for how they were using peppermint or how old the baby was or anything of that nature. But the results were about 50% of people who answered the survey said that they did experience a reduction. So just something to be aware of. Guidelines for infants. First, I want to start by saying these are really amazing to have next to the changing table for things like diaper rash, or if there's colicky baby or upset stomach or something like that. It's really nice to just keep a bottle of your diluted oil for the baby and have it there by the changing table. That's a really great, like as many times as the baby needs to go to the changing table is a good rule of thumb for how many times to apply the oils for infants when you need them. And that's because the small, like heavily diluted, like frequent, shorter term uses are better than doing like a heavy application. So that's why I like to put it by the changing table and just have that be used. But that being said, it's best with babies to wait until they actually have an issue come up. Like I said, diaper rash or something like they could maybe have respiratory problem with colds, seasonal colds and things like that. I'll talk about some of the oils I like for babies in a little while, but just know that those frequent, highly diluted applications are going to be best for almost everything to do with using oils for a baby. Make sure to avoid contact with the baby's mouth, eyes, nose, and ears. Where we start with dilution for newborn is 1 drop per 15 milliliters, which is the same as about a tablespoon of carrier oil. And this is plenty. Like this is really strong because babies' skin is very, very thin. When they're born, they haven't yet developed all their organs and their skin isn't fully developed. So they're going to get a lot of benefit from even that like diluted of an application, especially if you're applying it frequently throughout the day, like I was suggesting you do. It's a good idea to test oils on the skin and check for irritation within 2 to 12 hours, just to be sure. I usually do it on the top of baby's foot is a good place, or you could do it maybe on the wrist or the back of the hand. And you're testing it in its diluted stage. Also, again, consult a physician for medical issues. One thing I've noticed can affect babies is if they take a bath and you've emulsified the oil in the bath water really well. That means you're like mixing up the like basically 1 or 2 drops you're putting in the entire bath, and you use something like liquid soap or salt, or some people like heavy cream, then they're going to get a much stronger effect from the oil. It's going to be more gentle and easy on them, at the same time more effective. So make sure to use an emulsifier if you're doing baby bath with essential oils. And for infants, we always use really gentle oils. A lot of these are the floral ones like lavender, Roman chamomile, melaleuca or tea tree, orange is really nice. I also like helichrysum a lot for babies, and rose can be nice for babies. So use caution with the oils like eucalyptus and with the mint oils, because if you put them on your own chest, you can feel how cooling they are. So those are not to be applied to a baby's chest really until they're quite a bit older. Even like toddlers, you want to use caution with those oils applied directly. Now you still can diffuse them and have them in to help with respiration, but I usually go to something like tea tree or melaleuca or even lavender to help if there's blocked sinus pathways, instead of going to something harsher like the eucalyptus and mints. Okay, so oral use is great for kids, but it's recommended that you begin when they're over 39 pounds, or that's 18 kilograms. So there are 3 types of application that we think of for essential oils: aromatic, topical, and oral or internal. And I just want to talk a little bit about what these are and how you might use them during maternity. So for aromatic use, you might want to use this for things like affecting the mood and emotions, for sinus discomfort, for air purification, and for memory. A lot of times I literally just open the bottle and just smell the oil and get a lot of benefit from that. You can also put a drop in your hand and cup your hands together and inhale it in that way. With moms, sometimes they like to have like a mom diffuser or dad diffuser by just putting the oils on your shirt or something, where the baby won't have like direct contact with their eyes, but they'll still get the diffusion effects off of your body. And also I really like the jewelry for the aromatic effects of necklaces and things like that, especially in postpartum for hormonal balance. It's really nice to have something that's just like around you a lot that you can inhale and enjoy, and will help balance hormones and adapt your body back to how it was before pregnancy. So a few precautions really just for infants. I mean, aromatic use is amazing for babies, and it's really gentle and easy on them. The only time when they might be overwhelmed by it is if you put them in a hot, steamy bathroom or shower or something like that. So that's not recommended for new babies. And also for babies or children with compromised respiration. And also constant exposure is not ideal, because in part they need to smell their parents and their environment. That's really important for their development. So it's better to use them diffused occasionally. And the diffusers that most of us probably are using, they go off in spurts and go on and off. And so that's actually a really nice way to use them as well, because you're not constantly diffusing them. It's also kind of, I've heard a lot about with pets, you want to just leave the door open. So if you have a toddler running around and you have a diffuser in the kitchen, but the toddler can go all over the house, then they're not going to be constantly exposed, because they can leave the room if they're overwhelmed and walk around. But in general, aromatic use is very, very safe. It won't be a problem that you have to worry about. Just keep in mind those few precautions there. So I like aromatic uses during the childbearing year for things like nausea, which can happen in the first trimester often, and also in the labor and delivery room. A lot of people get nauseous before they give birth. So that can be really nice. My midwife, the only essential oil I used during all my pregnancies was 1 drop of peppermint in my vomit bowl during labor, and it completely turned my situation around. I've told this story quite a bit, but it had such a profound effect on me. It's one of the reasons why I do teach what I do now. And it's because when you're in labor, you're tired usually, and sometimes you feel a bit nauseous and you're wanting energy. And also you get a little bit like in your primal state of mind. So it's nice to have something like peppermint to kind of wake you up and make you alert and remembering, oh, I'm having a baby, and it basically took care of every issue I was experiencing, including labor pain, to have that in my vomit bucket. So I had firsthand experience with how amazing aromatic uses can be for things like nausea and also for pain. So keep that in mind. That's such an incredible gift to give to someone when they're having a baby in the labor room. It's also good for if you have trouble with sleep, which is really common during pregnancy. And then also, of course, after the baby's born, you want to get the best sleep you can. Anxiousness is common during pregnancy in general, and also during labor or when you first start labor. I like in a labor room to diffuse orange with frankincense, or orange with lavender, or orange with peppermint. It just feels like a really good combination because orange is very uplifting and positive, and then the other ones have their different effects depending on what kind of mood you want. Lavender would be a little bit more calming, frankincense is grounding, and peppermint was energizing. So you can make your own labor blends, but it's also a really great way to cleanse the air. When I was talking about the different uses we get from aromatic diffusion, one of them was to like cleanse the air of microbes and things like that. So it's a great thing to do frequently. Also with hormonal imbalance, which can happen a lot in postpartum, just as your body gets back to normal, it's really nice to diffuse oils. I like, especially like geranium and clary sage, and I have a couple blends in my blend book for that are really helpful for people, because it also thinks about like getting your body back in balance, like you're sloughing off like excess fluids and getting your hormones in line and healing your tissues. And so I keep all of that in mind when I'm thinking about what kinds of blends are good for postpartum. For infant teething, there can be like pain and irritation and fussiness associated with that, and diffusion is a really nice thing to do for babies then. Lavender being one of the top oils I would recommend. And then also for, I think that says upsets or digestive problems. I'm not sure what that, sorry, the words cut off a little bit, but definitely for digestive issues, diffusion can be amazing. So keep those all, they're all really common things that come up during pregnancy. So for topical applications, these include so many different things, like taking a bath, getting a massage, using a poultice or some kind of compress on your body. Also, you can just use like a roller bottle like this and put it directly like on the back of the neck or on the wrists or behind the ears or on the heart, wherever you'd like. You can put it where you have pain. If you have like a muscle pain right here, then that's where you would put it. So basically with topical applications, you're just going to go right to wherever you're feeling the discomfort with the oils. And unless you want to do something like take a bath or get a whole body massage, then you're usually looking at a specific place on your body where you're applying them. Keep in mind that when you take a bath and when you receive a massage, especially on the upper half of your body, you're also receiving the aromatic benefits from that kind of application. So you get topical and aromatic benefits from that. So topical tends to deal more with body systems, which I have on the next slide, but some safety guidelines include testing on the skin. There's photosensitizing oils, like I have a bottle of bergamot here and it says highly sensitizing to the sun. When women are pregnant, they have fluctuating hormones, and one of the hormones that increases is called the melanocytic hormone, and that's the hormone that makes us sensitive to sun sensitizing essential oils. So where you may have been able to go out with a little bit of lemon oil on your chest in the sun and not get terribly burned, although you still might get burned. When you're pregnant, you would actually be much more inclined to get burned from these photosensitizing oils. So it's pretty easy to just look at the bottle before you use oils and make sure you know which ones are sun sensitizing. Bergamot is the most sun sensitizing, and then also a lot of the other citrus ones are, with orange being the least. So, and that just means to put it on your body where it's underneath clothing, or wait until the nighttime, or you could just live in a rainy climate like we do in Oregon here, and then you won't be exposed to the sun. So also using emulsifiers in bath, that's just another basic safety precaution. Here's a blend that I like for postnatal peri blend for healing the tissues, and it has lavender, frankincense, and helichrysum. Sometimes I do this with a different floral oil, like Roman chamomile is really nice. And I would say the main difference between that and lavender is I think of Roman chamomile more for soreness, and lavender is really good for redness. Those just a small distinction, but they have a lot of the same properties for skin. And you can also use something like geranium instead of lavender or Roman chamomile. And that will also have like a really good like kind of anti-inflammatory effect on the skin. And then frankincense will help with the cellular healing, and helichrysum, very good for all those things, especially with the inflammatory response that tissues have. So after you give birth to a baby, like whether you have a cesarean section or a vaginal birth, there's going to be some tissue disruption, and then your body's going to be working hard to repair itself and get back to normal. So you can use this blend for either of those. And I have here directions on how to make a wound spray. That's one way to apply them. You can, with topical use, usually you will decide between blending with water or blending with a carrier oil, like a fixed oil, like coconut oil. It's good to understand that the carrier oil, like coconut oil, is a bit more warming, while the water is more cooling. So if someone has an infection or a like kind of red, swollen, like angry looking tissues, then it might be better in that case to go with more of a cooling water-based blend. Whereas other things for topical use like bruises and stuff like that might do better with an oil-based. So that's just something that I picked up in herbal school, but it really does make a difference which carrier you use. And actually in one of my guidebooks, this is the only, this one, and then also my new one, which I'll tell you how to get a free copy of right here. I have a whole section on carriers and what different effects you can get from the carriers for different applications. And so it's kind of fun to play around with it. And you can also just use the very basic coconut oil for everything, water for everything. But if you want to play around with different carriers, it's kind of fun to look at that. So massage, as I mentioned, is one of the main topical forms of application. And here are just some basic guidelines for how much to use. So with pregnancy, it's basically 1 to 2 drops per 5 milliliter of carrier oil, which is a teaspoon. And this, again, is just to start. It's just to make sure there's no problems with skin sensitivity. It might actually be enough and be effective for most people. But for people who like things a little bit stronger or are not receiving the effects they want, please feel free to add more to it, and don't feel like you're going to harm your baby. It's just basically a starting point for you. And that's really the same with all of these. Like with labor, that's an intense time. You can definitely go more up to 3 drops and find more relief with that, but you can keep going up higher as well. Like we want you to have a good experience of having a lot of relief. There are a few oils, like I'm actually going to talk about black pepper in a little bit, and that's one that's like pretty strong. And so that's when it's usually recommended that people dilute that more heavily than they would other oils. So I think just as long as you keep stuff like that in mind, again, that's something else that you can read on the bottle. So you don't have to memorize it. Just as you're working with oils, look and see if there's suggestions like that. And then I go to newly, postpartum, just 2 to 3 drops per teaspoon or 5 milliliter. And then a baby, 1 drop per tablespoon or 15 milliliter. And then on up, as kids get older, you can make them start out stronger as their skin develops. So here are some other dilutions that are a good place to start with the roller bottle. Just 1 part of essential oil to 2 parts of carrier. With baths, 4 to 8 drops of essential oil with an emulsifier. Wanted to mention that it's really nice to have a bath during pregnancy and also during labor. I don't, however, recommend putting essential oils in the labor tub because, as some of you may know, the oils do leach toxins from plastic, and birth tubs are lined with plastic. And also, especially if it's a water birth and a baby's being born, we just don't want to risk any kind of exposure to the baby's eyes or something like that. But you can absolutely use oils during labor in a tub or in a foot bath. And here I have directions for a foot bath. There's a hot compress, which is 2 to 4 drops of essential oil with emulsifier. So what I like to do during labor is to actually have a crock pot that you'd use for cooking and to fill that up with water and essential oils. And that makes a really nice place to keep your regs for your hot compress. So if someone has labor pain and they're benefiting from hot or cold compress, then you can just keep adding more oils and keeping it warm in a crock pot. And that's just, I think, brilliant. I've seen people do that and it's pretty amazing. So here are some things we would think of for topical uses during maternity. Definitely pain, definitely discomfort and tension. when I was pregnant with my first baby, I was so used to being full of energy, and my friend who wasn't pregnant came by, and we were going to go to the farmer's market, and she said at the last minute, "Oh, let's walk." And I was like, "Oh, great. I'd like to walk." It was like maybe 3 miles away. So we walked there, and I mean, I was just like exhausted and so hungry when we got there, and then we had to walk back, and this was before Uber existed. But I think that like you don't have as much energy sometimes in different phases of pregnancy. You think you have a lot of energy, and then it comes down to actually doing something like a normal activity that you would be fine for, and whoa, you're exhausted. So I think also you might have a little bit more joint pain and muscle pain. Your relaxin hormone like loosens joints, and things are just expanding, so you feel a little bit different, and it's really good to have that support for pain and discomfort. And also with your digestive system, as you expand and grow and your organs get shifted around, your intestines are no longer in the place they've been your entire life. They're getting squeezed around from the baby. So you're going to end up with some digestive discomforts. Also, because your blood volume almost doubles during pregnancy, people tend to have issues with circulation like hemorrhoids and varicose veins. These are all things you can use essential oils to help ease some of these discomforts. And then, as I'd mentioned with the other section, like damage to skin and tissues, that would be more applicable in the like labor postpartum time. But these are how I think of topical uses during pregnancy. So with internal applications, there's sort of a little bit of, I guess, a difference in opinion of this in the essential oil communities that I've encountered. I think that there's a really two like extreme points of view on it, and I try to fall somewhere in the middle on this. So some people say don't even use any essential oils internally, and some people say use everything you want. I'm kind of in the middle. I think that with the guidance and guidelines of someone who does this professionally and knows what they're talking about, you could work with someone to take some internally. What I really like and recommend are essential oils that are already in like a vitamin supplement, because they're measured out for people to use, and I think they can be really beneficial, especially starting at maybe half, if you're not used to taking them, like a half dose of vitamins, and then building up after that initial detoxification. So I like that because it's different than someone just whenever they feel like it shaking essential oils into their mouth. I think we need to be a little bit more controlled about how they're used internally. So I, in general, stick with topical and aromatic use during pregnancy, because I think that without more research, that's really just the safest way to recommend using these, and very, very effective. So these are my favorite oils for pregnancy, and they're all really effective. Like I can't think of any symptom of pregnancy that would not be addressed by, actually, you could probably pick out 5 of these to address almost everything with. And I guess if I had to do that, I would probably say clary sage, lavender, peppermint or spearmint, rose, maybe like, and then an orange or neroli or one of those citrus ones would be really amazing. Although I love ylang ylang too, but anyway, they're all amazing for different phases of pregnancy. And again, almost every oil is going to be appropriate for pregnancy except for a few. And people are always asking me which ones you would not recommend so much. So I want to just go over this. But I want to be clear that I've read the Merck Index and every single book there is on this topic. And there are very few recorded cases of real harm done, like people are not losing their babies or having spontaneous abortions from essential oils. So if you're already taking oils or putting them in your food or something internally, or you're using some of these oils on the list, please don't worry about it. It's just more that I'll explain like how their actions aren't exactly the best fit for maternity. So there's so many alternatives and so many great oils to use that I would just suggest sticking with more of the list I used before. So basically, some essential oils are cardiac stimulants, which can be really helpful for things like energy and circulation. Cinnamon and cassia are very warming, and they like stimulate the flow of blood in the body. Cinnamon's had a few tests where it's associated with altered length of pregnancy and lactation problems. So it's usually one on the list of like not the best for pregnancy. So probably better to avoid that one. In any case, when you double your blood volume, it's probably good to just leave that alone and like not try to have too much effect on that with the oils you're using. So I would recommend not using so much cinnamon or cassia. Also, wintergreen and birch are blood thinners. So along those same routes, people could benefit better from using things for muscle pain and massage, like peppermint and spearmint and Siberian fir and black pepper. Like those will have very, very similar effects to wintergreen and birch, but not have such a strong blood thinning attribute. And you may know that wintergreen and birch, like the constituent methyl salicylate, is where we get aspirin. So that's something that doctors usually say avoid during pregnancy as well. So just as a general caution, I would say those aren't my favorite. With the hormone influencers, these ones are amazing for pregnancy, but I do recommend like clary sage be used for labor. And I'm going to talk more about clary sage because that's a really big question that I get from people, is how to use that one. So yes, these are really appropriate, but start in labor with clary sage. Fennel is amazing for postpartum. So I would just use those in the appropriate stage of pregnancy. Other uterine contractors are jasmine, myrrh, and rose. That doesn't mean they're not appropriate and okay to use during pregnancy. I would just suggest being aware, like you don't really want to stimulate the uterus until you're ready to begin labor. So if they're having that effect for you, I would say definitely hold off until, some people say hold off until like the last few weeks of pregnancy for those ones as well. And then just on lots of lists, including Robert Tisserand's and Denise Turan and Jane Buckle and a lot of the people I follow in this field, there's some concern for those oils: basil, rosemary, oregano, thyme, fennel, and dill just during the pregnancy period. So occasional exposure probably won't be a problem, but those aren't the best ones to be including during pregnancy. And here's some alternatives. So for a good immune blend, melaleuca is just highly antifungal. Frankincense, antimicrobial. Lemon is one of the best immune boosters. And then also marjoram is antibacterial. So those all together could be diffused or put into a roller bottle and used when there's like problems with common cold or immunity. And then the muscle rub oils are what are also called driving oils. So driving oils are ones that penetrate deeply into the body, which is what's so helpful for things like sciatica and muscle pain and joint pain. And so a few of those are peppermint, Siberian fir, lemongrass isn't actually driving oil, but it would be good combined with those. And also things like lavender or other floral blends are good combined with these driving oils for massage and basically just muscle tension kind of effect. These are my favorite essential oils for babies. So cardamom, they just smell like a banana bread loaf. I think that one's really lovely, and it can help with problems related to the lungs or digestion. So that's a really nice one to have on hand. Dill is going to help with things like colic, and frankincense is just, some people say it's like a really good bonding oil for mother-infant or father-infant bonding, and can also help you and the baby to adjust to just birth in general. And it's antimicrobial and just a really amazing oil, good for skin, so many things. Helichrysum I mentioned I like for respiratory issues and also for any kind of like bruising or tissue healing or teething, stuff like that. It's very, very nice. Lavender, every new mom should have a bottle of lavender. And then probably also melaleuca or tea tree, because that would be a really good one if there's a fungal issue, you know, like some babies get thrush and also get diaper rash that has a yeasty smell. And those two together are really good for helping babies with that. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I use these, but also orange is nice for digestion. It's very gentle. It's not as detoxifying as something like lemon. So it's just a little bit more mild and nice, uplifting as well. If there's a lot of tears or sadness, the orange can just bring a mood around. I actually used to drive carpool across town with my kids when they were in grade school, and the school was like 10 miles away, and I had to take the freeway, and there was traffic, and it was a great school, but sometimes there were crabby moods on the ride over or the ride home. And also there were conflicts with the other carpool kids once in a while, but I diffused essential oil of orange. And I swear, this never failed me. Like as soon as I put it in, like everyone would just calm down and stop bickering. It was amazing. I should try to do that again. Like my kids don't usually do that anymore. They're older, but it was within like a minute, they would stop their arguing and bickering. It was amazing. And it also, of course, will help with like, you know, if you have digestive issues or feeling a little bit down. So that's a really nice one. Roman chamomile is one of my favorite oils. It's very bitter tasting if you've ever tried it. And bitterness, the flavor is associated with relaxing the nervous system. So in general, it's just a very, very calming oil. It kind of reminds me of kava as well, like that. You can feel your nerves relax with Roman chamomile. And it's also so good for the skin and just soothing oil. So that's a really nice one to have in the collection. It's one of the ones I would put in a bath with a sick baby. You could also use it for diaper rash. And some people have environmental reactions to things, and Roman chamomile would be a really good thing. And so would helichrysum and lavender if somebody's having like food reactions or environmental reactions to the cat or something like that. That would be a really nice one to use. And then also rose is just a lovely, highly antibacterial oil. Like it's very strong and potent in its antimicrobial effects. So you could think of that as just like beautifully smelling and calming, but really strong for the immune system. And so I've touched on a few different ways that I would use the oils for babies. I think just keep in mind to stick within the amount that I recommended, which is about a drop per tablespoon. So if you're doing a blend with lavender, melaleuca, and Roman chamomile, for example, you'd probably want to put 3 tablespoons of something like coconut oil and then 1 drop of each in that blend. And you can put it on the baby, like apply it as an infant massage, which is really easy to search for on YouTube, or you can just put the oils on the bottoms of the feet. You can use a stronger concentration if you're doing something like cord care for the baby, for which I use frankincense. So because that's a small part of their body, you can get a little bit of a stronger concentration, but you're not going to need that much for babies. So now I'm going to just talk about 3 different oils and more ways that I would use these. In my book, I go over 20 different oils and how they're used. And then in my e-course, I talk about 17 herbal profiles. So I go a lot more into depth, but I wanted to give you just a little taste of what is out there without overwhelming you in a short webinar. So black pepper may be sort of an unlikely thing to think of for maternity, but I really like it. And one of the reasons I like it so much is because its emotional attribute is courage. And that's just so fitting for having a baby, and especially a first baby, is to be strong. And I do believe that that transition to motherhood is not easy for some days. You know, it can be beautiful, amazing, but there are times that it's difficult. And I think you do learn a lot going through that process. And it takes a lot of courage to get to the other side where you're actually a parent. And my friend told me when I was pregnant, I was complaining about being pregnant with my first baby. I don't remember what I was complaining about, but she was having her second and pregnant at the same time. And I said, oh gosh, this pregnancy is exhausting. Or, you know, like I feel like I can't eat anything without feeling nauseous, like whatever, gripe. And she looked at me, she's like, Steph, she's like, you think it's hard being pregnant? And you talk about worried about the labor. She's like, no, the hard part is being a parent. And that's so true. It is the hard part of being a parent. So we just want to be as easy on ourselves as we can. And black pepper is going to be your friend in pregnancy, because that's when you have things like pain in your body. You're not used to digestive stuff, gas, you know, like your bowels that are dysregulated and things changing around, cramps and spasms. It's going to help with brain fog and fatigue, also cigarette addiction. It can help with depressed mood. So I just think this is a really nice oil to have. I mentioned earlier that it can cause skin sensitivity. I mean, I've put it directly on my skin and had absolutely no problem. So some people will be more sensitive than others, but it's just something to be aware of, especially if it's oxidized. Sometimes when the oils are left out or not properly stored, they can be oxidized, and then that causes more skin sensitivity. Not especially recommended for baths, but it's good for topical application in particular. That's the way I usually use it. So if you had something going on like cramping or digestive issues, you would just want to maybe put a drop in a teaspoon of carrier oil or in 2 teaspoons of carrier oil for skin that's sensitive, and then just apply it to your abdomen. I also like going in a clockwise direction for constipation and a counterclockwise direction for diarrhea, because that's the way your organs move, and that's just an energy worker kind of thing. But if you like stuff like that, you can apply it like that. Otherwise, you can just do it how you would normally do it. But great oil. Now, clary sage, I just got a notification from my website server, and they said that the most hits I have is from my page on clary sage. So I know this is a hot topic for people, and it really is an amazing oil. It is very specific for pregnancy for labor and postpartum. And I'm going to talk about how to use that. But just in general, I wanted to tell you that like clary sage is the most sedative essential oil that we have. So it can be very, very calming and relaxing, which is really nice during labor and also during postpartum. And because it helps to balance hormones, it's also amazing for diffuser blends and stuff like that in postpartum. But I think of it for stress, tension, insomnia, because of this sedative effect, for things like muscular aches and pains and sleep, and also just like if you're feeling down, it can help with like baby blues after the baby's born and into the years to come. And it's also good for late term pregnancy. So there's no definitive studies showing that essential oils can help bring on labor for a late term pregnancy. However, I have in my research for my e-course and books and everything I do, I've done a lot of interviews with people who do hundreds and hundreds of births every year, like work in other countries and are in birth centers, and they use essential oils. And it's a lot of people say absolutely, like geranium, clary sage, lavender, all of those can be really helpful for late-term labor. So how you would use them for that is to blend them with a carrier oil and have them like in a little neatly stored bottle with a tight fitting lid, and maybe 3 or 4 times a day apply them under the fundus, which is just under the belly and on the hips and lower back, and just kind of putting them around that like midsection when you're ready to start labor. And that can really help. And also it can be used if you have irregular contractions at the beginning of labor or slow to start labor. Like I had 3 slow to start labors. They all started with my water breaking at midnight, and they were all like really slow. So I wish I would have used clary sage. It was recommended to me by someone, and I was so afraid because I had heard that it makes contractions stronger. And so I didn't want to use it, and I refused it at all my births. And what I didn't understand is that, yes, it does make your contractions more effective, but it also helps relieve the pain at the same time and calm you at the same time. So it really is amazing how it has both of those attributes at the same time. So you're just being more efficient with your contractions. So one thing I would say is once your contractions are going steadily, you don't need to keep using clary sage. Like clary sage is really to get it going and to make it effective. But you don't want to overdo it with it, because some people start to have contractions that are overly strong. So I would just recommend that you discontinue use after the contractions are going in strong and labor started. And then of course, resume again in postpartum if you'd like, for the hormonal balancing and calming effects. There's just a few precautions with this, but basically just wait until the mother's at term. So for example, if there's a baby that's asynclitic or breech or something, and it'd be better to wait on clary sage because you're hoping the baby will get into a different position. You don't want to start stimulating the uterus at that point. So I would say get the okay from the birth professional that's helping you before you start using clary sage. Also, it can bring on first lactation for babies, which is really nice. So if someone's having trouble with early nursing, it might be a really good one. And it can help with things like night sweats as well. And I have a few precautions. I say avoid with alcohol. I don't know how many people be drinking right away in postpartum, but it can cause really vivid kind of crazy dreams. Also, if there's a lot of heavy postpartum bleeding, you might want to avoid for a while. Okay, and finally, I wanted to mention jasmine. Just a beautiful, very feminine essence. I could talk about rose in a lot of these same ways that I talk about jasmine. one thing I really like about it is it's very, very calming, but it's also energizing at the same time. So this is another one that's really nice in labor. And it also can increase mental acuity when you have brain fog. So that's a really good thing for tired parents after the baby's born. So really good in postpartum as well. And it can stimulate uterine action and contractions in a similar way as clary sage. So that can be used as well for that purpose. And it will additionally help with exhaustion. So if I had to choose between the two and there were sort of irregular contractions and a mom was exhausted, like jasmine might be a better choice in that moment because it's going to actually like have some energizing properties and wake the mom up a little bit. You can, of course, also blend the oils together. That would be lovely. Another thing about using these, I'd mentioned out of the hand and out of the bottle, but using a handkerchief can be really nice, especially for a laboring mom where you can fill the handkerchief with the oils and then she can inhale them between contractions or when she feels like it's right. And that's really like a good way to like empower her as opposed to having a diffuser going off constantly. This like gives her the control of like, okay, I need it now, which I really like doing that with jasmine. It can also increase sex drive or libido after the baby's born. You can use this toward the end of pregnancy as well for that. And it tends to have a balancing effect on milk production. Once in a while, it will decrease breast milk, and it has been used for weaning before, but it also can increase breast milk production. So I think it's something worth trying, and most people state that it's more balancing than anything else, like depending on what the needs are. So for example, if you're engorged, you could use it. It will help with engorgement with overly full milk. And then if you're not producing enough, it will help you to produce more. So that's really nice in that way. It also can help with after pains after the baby's born, if you're having cramping, baby blues, and weak immune system. And anyway, my only precaution here is to just make sure you're using pure jasmine absolute. It is more expensive because so many flowers are needed to create a simple 5 milliliter bottle. And it is produced differently than an essential oil as an absolute. Also, you want to begin mostly when the woman's ready to start labor. And as I mentioned, it may suppress milk production in some women. I really want to save some time for questions, but I wanted to share this with you first. So this guidebook, which was just published by Your Oil Tools, they're having a really cool special now where you can receive a free copy in the mail in the US or Australia. And it is basically like full of information, charts about how much to apply, when to apply, specific use guides for every phase of pregnancy, including third trimester uses, safety precautions, how to adapt use for a hospital setting, just tons of stuff. And I think it's really cute, the color scheme, because it's green and pink, which is super cute. So if you're interested, I think Aisha was going to post a link to how you can order that. And I don't think they're going to keep it going forever. So you might want to get on that, and you just basically sign up for the mailing list where you'll find out about webinars and other information. I also have mentioned my book a couple of times. I had like a true inspiration to write this. I woke up in the middle of the night and it just popped into my head that I want to tell stories about being pregnant and my babies, but I also want to share all this information about essentials for maternity. So the way that it's laid out is like basically a short story about different phases, which is kind of great for new parents or new moms who are pregnant and want to like hear more about like what to expect. And then I talk about applications and precautions and what oils I'd use when, and then in the back there's like 20 oils that are monographed. And anyway, it was really fun to write. I was truly inspired the whole time, and I really hope that you'll consider picking up a copy or recommending it to people. And that's available a lot of different places, including my website, Your Oil Tools, Aroma Tools, Oil Life. There's Essence Oils and other companies in the UK and Europe. But anyway, it's pretty widely available. It's actually being translated into German very soon, and then in the future, Italian and possibly Portuguese. So very happy about that. If you would like to receive certification and go through my complete training to be able to teach on this topic or apply it to your practice, or just use it as a parent and know more in-depth information, I offer an e-course. And in the US, you can get continuing education credits for taking the course, but everywhere you get a certification once you complete it and take the quizzes and stuff, and the prices are there. And for about the next week, I will mail, if you sign up if you sign up anywhere in the world, actually, I don't think it'll be that expensive to send, but I will send you a copy of each of these. Maybe I'll just for now say Australia, Europe, and the US. I will be able to send you a free copy of these two through a week from today if you sign up for the e-course. So if you sign up, send me a separate email and tell me you were at this webinar and I'll get you hooked up. And that's everything. So please join my Facebook group, Essential Oils for the Birth Kit, and become part of that community with us. And also have an Instagram account at stephj.mcbride. Happy to talk to people anytime. There's my contact information. I have obrigada up there because I taught in Portugal recently. I modified my keynote, but I kept the obrigada because I just loved going to Portugal and teaching in Porto and Lisbon last year. So now I think I'm ready to take questions. Aisha, should I
Thank you, Stephanie, so much. Such amazing information. Thank you so much for sharing with our community. This is so valuable, and it's such a beautiful time to use essential oils, but it's also a time to take extra precautions. So I just so appreciate your expertise and your wisdom and all the experience that you have. I also want to give a special shout out to our listeners from Holland and Lithuania. It's just really cool. We have somebody here from Copenhagen and all over the United States. So I love connecting with our global community. So thank you for joining us live. We do have a bunch of questions. So we could do this two ways. Can you see the chat, Stephanie?
No, why don't I check?
Okay. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and close, stop sharing your screen. That will be better, and that way you'll come on in larger form. And then if you, there's so many, I'm just gonna let you go ahead if you want. Let's see, I can get started with our first question, which is the perennial massage blend from your birth kit. Is it also for massaging inside of the vagina? Because effective perennial massage is outside and inside.
Yes, you can do that. Yes, absolutely.
Great. Okay. Let's see. Here is also the best homemade blend and roller bottle for birth to be able to handle the feelings of contraction. Most of my pregnant ladies are so scared of not being able to handle the contractions and the pain and be in the moment of losing control. Which oils to support the spiritual connections between mother and fetus? So that might be kind of two different questions there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like bergamot for self-confidence a lot, and that's a really nice one because it's a floral and a citrus, so it's uplifting and calming. Again, I love that contrast with oils. So you could do something with like clary sage and bergamot, and then lavender, or I'm trying to think. I think a lot when I create blends, and that one's kind of a spur of the moment, but clary sage and jasmine could also be really nice together with a fir, or, I think that a lot of, like, look at the emotional effects that you want, but bergamot's the first one that came to mind to just put in one of the blends, but definitely clary sage, because it will help to calm and also make the contractions more effective.
Great. Hold on. I'm just looking through the questions here. Okay. Oh, wait. What do you recommend to support baby right after birth? I have seen frankincense on the crown, etc. Any other suggestions?
I always say frankincense on the crown. I think it's so important for the baby to bond with the parents that I'm not a heavy user right after birth, because I want them to smell their parents. That's so important. But I think frankincense all around is just such a good, because it's the be here now oil, so you're kind of bringing them out into the world. And I think that's why they say it's good for the bonding as well, because if you're in the moment and really present, then you're connecting more with the person in the room with you. But that can also be used for cord care. So that's one of the things that babies tend to need. One of the first oils is something for their cord, to keep their cord clean and with cord care. So I would just keep it with frankincense. It's really simple. If you wanted to do something in the diffuser for mom and baby, you know, just the relaxing, gentle oils, clary sage, lavender, that kind of thing is nice.
Awesome. Thank you. I think I covered all the questions. There is also a question if you're willing to give access to the slides. Is that something you could actually put on your website for download?
Can I, yeah, probably. Can I think about that? Because usually I have like a community of people that I teach and I talk with about what they're, just to make sure the information stays, like, you know, the game telephone, like I'm really careful about what I say about this topic so I don't spread misinformation. So usually I share the information with people who've taken my e-course and like I've passed the quizzes and I know for sure that we're on the same page. So I think it'd be better if people write me individually and just tell me where they're at in their training. Does that make sense? It's such a touchy topic when there's so
Absolutely.
much
Yes.
liability.
And I would recommend that all this information is certainly in your book, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Okay, one more question. Any thoughts about using adaptive during pregnancy?
I think that the oils are amazing. I would not use the supplement necessarily because of the phenol. And I gave Aisha an article. Do you have that you can maybe post and
I don't have it right on hand, but I can dig that out.
try to find it again? But it's pretty scientific research article. But phenol's just one of those ones you would use with caution internally. It has a lot of hormonal effects, and there's been some studies which indicate it might not be suited for pregnancy.
But the oil blend is fine.
Yeah, I like the oil blends, definitely.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for your time. We will, we have this on our Facebook Live, so you can view this recording there. This recording will live on our essentialwellness.life website. And then I will send the recording out to everybody who registered on Eventbrite as well. So you will have it for your reference, and or if you missed a slide, then you can watch it there. Thank you, everyone.
I appreciate the global participants very much, and the local ones. And if you found out about this through me, please contact me, because I would love to make these connections before I come back to Europe.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. You have been amazing, an amazing voice for our global community, Stephanie.
Thanks,
so we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Planning everything.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. If you do think of any more questions that you have, you can put your questions out on Facebook. You can also email Stephanie directly and contact her. As I said, she is an excellent resource. So have a wonderful day, everyone, and we'll look forward to connecting with all of you soon.